Kickoff for the 2025 season's just around the corner in Norman, Oklahoma. A big season upcoming for Brent Venables and the Sooners, helping us break it all down and preview the upcoming 2025 football season for Oklahoma. Good friend of mine, friend of the show, one of the best in the business when it comes to talking all things OU and not just football, every single sport. That being Tyler McComas of The Ref. Again, he joins the show once again. Tyler, what's going on, man? Appreciate you taking the time. Really excited to chop it up and talk this Oklahoma Sooners team.
Yeah, I'm excited just to talk about a new season. I'm excited to put the past season behind you, which leads to the question real quick. When do you kind of acknowledge your team as the record for the following season? Can I do that? Can I say the 0-0 Oklahoma Sooners? Because that sounds a hell of a lot better than the 6-7 Oklahoma Sooners I've been talking about all offseason. So I need to know kind of the line of when you can be 0-0 instead of your past record last year.
I think we've reached that point. I think once you hit the field for fall camp, especially, I'd like to think media days. Like we've kind of, all right, we've put the past behind us, but I understand why folks in Norman would want to do that so badly after last year. And funny enough, Tyler, that's actually where I want to start because I'm going to make you relive it one more time because I think it sets up how we've gotten to this point. Looking back at 2024 really briefly, like you mentioned, OU goes 6-7, 2-6 in SEC play, year one in the SEC, lost to Navy in that wacky Armed Forces Bowl game. I don't even know that the common SEC fan really understands how disappointing of a season it was, Tyler. Like when you think about the history and for example, I remember when Oklahoma was a touchdown underdog to Tennessee at home. And I read something that was like, this is the biggest home underdog Oklahoma's been in 20 years or something. I was like, it really gives perspective how good OU has been and how foreign this territory is. Where we're talking about, man, if the Sooners can just get to an 8-win season, it's a great year. And it's like, that's not a great year for Oklahoma football. But how do you compartmentalize what happened in 2024 and what really felt like a kind of a nightmare season, if we're being totally honest?
Well, I learned to never challenge worse because I challenged worse a lot last year.
It can't get any worse.
It can't get any worse, man. And I said that so many times throughout the year, Ooh, you lost to Tennessee and it was rough, but I don't know if it can be as bad offensively as it was there. Then you don't score a touchdown against Texas. Well, it can't be worse than that, not scoring a touchdown in the Cotton Bowl. Then South Carolina hangs 21 points on you in 5 minutes. Well, it can't be worse than that. Then you lose the way that you lost to Missouri. Well, it can't be worse than that. And then you have a bowl loss to Navy. Buddy, I mean, it took years off my life. So what went wrong? What happened? Everything. I don't really know what went right. Everything went wrong. And I think it starts with really a couple of things. Look, every football team gets beat up, man, especially in the SEC, man. Every team gets beat up. Every team faces injuries. But what happened at OU last year, especially on the offensive side, was a disaster that I've never seen with this program in my lifetime, and I'm not sure that I've seen it with another major program before, where you were just decimated at so many positions offensively, specifically at wide receiver, on the offensive line. So you dealt with your worst injury situation ever, with an incredibly tough schedule in a new conference. And oh, by the way, this really set everything up poorly. You probably had the worst offensive coordinator hire you've ever had in program history in Seth Luttrell. I mean, Chris, the dude was a member of the 2000 national championship team, the last team to win a national championship here. Like he's been a god. He's been a guy that, really everyone loves for so long. And he made it halfway through the season in year one as an OC. Like, you really got to screw up that that's the case. So they really struck out with their OC hire. They were as decimated by injuries as any team that I've ever seen before. Quarterback play isn't what you hoped it was, thought it was. You weren't good late. I mean, just everything went wrong last year. It was, even with a good defense and a good special teams, your offense was the worst in my lifetime. And that's why it led to a 6-7 season, man. And where the head coach is on the hot seat now for the first time since 1998. Crazy to say, but it's true.
Tyler, on that note, that's exactly where I want to go. Brent Venables entering his 4th season in Norman, and you just said it. I think Brent Venables and hot seat, that chatter is going hand in hand. Obviously, we've been talking about it all off season. I ask every single person whenever we do these team previews, I ask about kind of what the vibe is around their head coach and the direction of the program. And so I'll ask you again, Oklahoma fans, because Brent Venables is an OU guy. He's through and through, but At some point, it's about wins and losses. That never mistake that. We all know what this business is. What is the feeling? You got as good a feel, if not, I'd say better than anybody, a feel on the pulse of the Oklahoma fan base. What's the overall vibe around Brent Venables right now as head coach going into, like we said, a pivotal season?
It's definitely the most mixed feel in 30 years of OU football on the head coach because, nobody really had mixed feelings on Bob Stoops for so long, right? I mean, all he did was a consistent contender. Everyone loved Bob Stoops here. Even Lincoln Riley, I think it was about to get to a point where people really started to question him, and then he bolted to USC. So there are people here that still believe in Brent Venables. Don't get me wrong. And I still think that that's the majority of people. But there's also a lot of loud people that say he's not a great game manager. He's terrible on the offensive side. He's a defensive coordinator operating as a head coach right now. So there's just more loud people saying that this isn't the right guy for the job. And I think that this is a small minority. I think that there's a very, very vocal minority of people, but hey, let's just be 6-7 so we can start over again. Let's not be 8-4 and miss out on the playoff and do this whole song and dance where we bring him back. No, let's get it to be bad so we can replace him. The vibe is just something that we haven't been used to seeing here because it really is the main point of conversation. What is it going to take for Brent Venables to be back in 2026? And I think that there's a lot of different answers to that. I think it's kind of a complicated answer. You're facing a situation with a buyout that you've never had before in OU athletics history. OU's never paid a buyout before. We've been the ones laughing at Texas A&M for how much they paid Jimbo. And I said that to some Auburn media members at SEC Media Day. I said, it's weird, guys. OU's never been put in a situation where they have to pay a big buyout in any sport. And the Auburn folks were like, yeah, us neither. Yeah, no, it never happened to us here at Auburn. So that's become kind of a norm thing around the SEC and big-time programs, but not for Oklahoma, man. So it's complicated, and there's no middle grounds. Either you're all in on Brent Venables or you're all out on Brent Venables. And I don't see too many people in the middle at this point. But I would still say the majority of people still think it's going to work out, and it can work out with him as the head coach. But this year's going to be the ultimate determining factor on what his future is, no doubt. I mean, he is no doubt on the hot seat. And I would say, given the expectations at Oklahoma, historically, currently, and even this year, he's on the hottest seat in the SEC, man.
So as we look at this 2025 squad, Tyler, the team that's going to try to get him off the hot seat and extend his stay there. On the offensive side, I want to start there. That's where a lot of the excitement and optimism is coming from because you add a guy in John Mateer from Washington State who takes over as QB1 who led all of FBS, I believe, if I stand correct, in total touchdowns. He was an electric factory for Washington State a season ago. Been obviously compared. I know you and I have talked shades of Baker Mayfield potentially. That's kind of the comp he's been getting from some. You also add Jaydn Ott from Cal to lead the running back room. And again, that was a huge boost to the running back position. So you may have one of the best, dare I say, maybe the best backfield in the SEC when it's all said and done. But the big questions are on the offensive line yet again, right? 3 starters are back. You added a couple guys from the portal, but safe to say you just have to improve from a season ago if you're going to have any shot to be better. Deion Burks is back, leading the receiving corps. That's big. You did add a guy like Isaiah Satania from Arkansas via the portal. And then you've got Carson Kent and Caden Helms at the tight end spot after Bauer Sharp hit the portal and went to LSU. Thoughts and expectations for this offense, Tyler? Again, it's a lot of new pieces, but I do believe there's a lot of reason to be excited. But is it as simple as it comes down to the offensive line and how big of a jump they've made from last year to this year?
Yes. And not just the offense, the entire team. Tell me what type of year the offensive line has, and I'll be able to tell you kind of in the neighborhood of what their record's going to be and what the year is like. If it's awful, terrible, decimated by injuries, bad play like last year, then you may be texting me in December saying, hey, man, can I get you on to talk about the next Oklahoma coach? Like, I seriously think that that's how much the offensive line matters. And if they're good, if they're solid, then I think that we could be talking about a team in November that's pushing for a spot in the college football playoff because I think that they are that good at quarterback. I think that they are that good at running back. And if healthy this year, I think that they can be that good at wide receiver. Everything sets up for this team if the offensive line can just be good, man. They don't have to be great, best in the SEC. And it's funny when you talk about the offense, yes, but just kind of the overall team around here, because I would say almost always a fan base of a team going into a year is almost always more optimistic than what the national media is, for the most part. But there's a different tone in OU's own fan base and the national or SEC media about this team. Because I hear Chris Doering of the SEC Network saying earlier this week, I think John Mateer is going to be SEC Player of the Year, and I think he's going to win the Heisman Trophy. There was Jordan Rodgers earlier this week. I think he's a top 4 quarterback in the SEC. I think he's better than Arch Manning, and I don't even think it's close. Like, some of the things that people are saying about John Mateer across the SEC, the expectations are super high, projecting him to win a Heisman Trophy. But if you say that around here to this own fan base, they ain't buying it because they don't want to get their hopes up again and throw out a bad offense. But if you can tell me that the offensive line is good this year, then I can buy into John Mateer being one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC. I can buy into Jaydn Ott pushing for the top running back spot in the SEC. And I do agree with you. I think OU is going to have the best quarterback running back duo in the conference. Burks is a stud. Satania, I think, is a really good player. And all I've heard from Arkansas people earlier this week is, hey, we really like him, but Taylon Green maybe didn't see the entirety of the field last year, and he felt like his opportunities were limited. He wanted to go play with the better quarterback who could maybe get him more opportunities down the field. Javonte Gibson really popped in the spring. He was out of Arkansas Pine Bluff last year, had a great year. The talent is there at the skill positions. I'm not going to tell you that they've got the most talented skill positions in the SEC, but they're at least in the conversation. So what does the offensive line do? Do they set them up to have a good year, or is it a catastrophe like it was last year? There's more things that have to go right to make the playoff than just that, but it's the tone setter for the entire team, man. It just is.
Something to note also, Ben Arbuckle in as offensive coordinator obviously was John Mateer's OC at Washington State. So you'd imagine that should lead to – he's in the same offense. So that should lead to a really quick – there won't be much of an adjustment period, you would think. We'll see how it plays out, though. On the defensive side, Tyler, I want to go there. R. Mason Thomas is back as one of the SEC's best pass rushers. You've got Demonic Williams and Jaden Jackson on the interior defensive line leading the way. Kip Lewis, obviously a name we're very familiar with. He leads the linebacking core. Colby McKenzie and Kendall Dolby will accompany him next to him. You added Kendall Daniels from Oklahoma State to man that cheetah position in the Brent Venables defense. You get Eli Bowen back at corner after garnering freshman All-American honors a season ago, and Robert Spears Jennings back at safety. Obviously, the two names I did not mention, guys you have to replace, Billy Bowman in the back end of the defense and Danny Stutzman, who is certainly one of the SEC's best at linebacker. They are both off to the NFL. Thoughts on the defense? I remember this is a unit last year, Tyler, you were really, really high on. Brent Venables is a defensive guy. You feel like this is the side of the ball that should be a strength, it feels like, on a yearly basis. Do you think that'll be the case again this year?
I'd be shocked if it wasn't, man. And these aren't my words. I'm going to give you the words of Cole Kublik has said this. David Pollock on our station earlier this week said it. Pretty good defensive lineman at Georgia. And Greg McElroy has said it as well. They all three have said the same thing. They think Oklahoma will have the best defensive line in the SEC. Best D-line in the SEC. I don't know if there's a program in college football, Chris, that has kind of changed their identity more than Oklahoma has the past 3 years. Because it was all offense and no defense. And now recently, like last year, it was all defense and it was no. This is a defensively led football team. And I think that we will be talking about Oklahoma as the most improved offense in the SEC, maybe in all of college football. That needs to be the case with how bad they were last year. But even with that, I think the defense is the strength, and it all starts up front on their D-line, man. R. Mason Thomas, I think when you came on with us in Atlanta, you were even saying he doesn't get as much talk as he should. I mean, he's not only was he a very good pass rusher last year, he was a very good pass rusher in a lot of games that were over by the fourth quarter. You know, like in the games where OU was actually in on it in the fourth quarter, and the opposing team actually felt like they had to throw the ball to make plays late, that's when he was at his best. A close game against Tulane, dude totally took over. A game against Alabama where they really had to throw more than they wanted with Jalen Milroe, he was getting hands in the face, making plays in the backfield. Auburn game late when OU took the lead, he was all over the place. So you saw good stuff from R. Mason Thomas last year. But what if they're in closer games in the second half where opposing teams don't feel like they just need to turn in hand 3 times and run the clock out because they're already up 3 or 4 touchdowns, right? Like he's going to have more pass rushing situations to be good. They're good in the interior. I think that they're really good at backer, man. Kip Lewis had, in the 2 SEC games that OU won, 2, Kip Lewis had a pick 6 in both of those. Hopefully they're not relying on that this year to win games in the SEC. I'd say the biggest questions for OU are at corner, not because they don't have good players there. They've just been a little beat up there, and that might be the case now. But this is going to be a fantastic defense that I think will rival any other defense in the SEC that you want to throw out there. OU will be good. Texas will be good. Georgia's going to be good. We'll see about Bama and Tennessee. I think OU's in that mix for best defenses in the SEC, and they're going to be put in better situations this year. Because what I just said about our Mason Thomas was the same thing about the entire defense. Nobody had to be aggressive against them. When teams had multiple score leads in the second half, they could play it conservatively. What happens when you don't have an offense that goes 3 and out every single possession, or an offense where you get a huge turnover on the plus side of the field and the offense gives it right back? That happened multiple times last year. So a better offense is going to put this defense in an incredible spot. I highly optimistic, man. Highly optimistic about this defense. And I think what they're going to be best at is getting after the quarterback and stopping the run. Pretty good spot to be in, I would say.
Tyler, special teams is a facet of the game that's often overlooked, but certainly it is vital. It can cost you or win you a game in this league. Oklahoma essentially revamped their special teams. Tate Sandel from UTSA taking over the kicking duties, and Jacob Urich from Kennesaw State taking over at punter. You got a couple different options in the return game. A guy like Satania, we talked about from Arkansas, he did it before. I don't know if a Deion Burks maybe would go back there. Somebody else. Thoughts on Oklahoma special teams? How do you see it factoring into the season? What are you expecting?
Don't expect them to be elite. They do have a really good special teams coach. They got Doug Deacon from San Diego State a year ago, and I think he did some very positive things. They lose Luke Elzinga at punter, who was really good. And I think in the Missouri game, maybe late in the third quarter, he had the most passing yards for OU, like late in that football game after a fake punt pass that he threw. There's just more of the offensive struggles from a year ago. But kickers was up and down, and it's been up and down for a while, man, at OU. And you hope Tate Sandel, who was at UTSA last year, can be good. You don't need him to be great. You just need him to be solid. Like, just be consistent and reliable from 40 yards in. It'd be great if Duke could make 52-yarders like crazy. I mean, clearly that would be awesome. But I think the expectation or the hope around here is, man, just be good from 40 yards in. Just know that if you're kicking a 38-yarder, this dude's he's gonna hammer it home. And he did last year at UTSA, man. The numbers look really, really good. Now, a little bit different kicking at UTSA than on the road at Bryant-Denny Stadium in November in a close game. A little bit different for a kicker, right? But my expectations for special teams is that it's solid. It's not a group that's going to have a huge mistake that costs you a football game. You are solid at punter. You are solid at kicker. Maybe you can be aggressive here and there with some fakes like they were last year that worked out. But yeah, it's often overlooked. It's still very, very important. I think for Oklahoma, you want a group that just doesn't kill you and make bad mistakes. Have a solid, reliable field goal kicker. Feel like you have a good punter. And hopefully you've got a good enough defense and a good enough offense that can win you a lot of games.
Tyler, for what it's worth, this stat doesn't mean as much now in the portal era in regards to returning starters, but Oklahoma does have 11 of them, 5 on offense, 6 on defense. I want to turn the attention quickly to the schedule. This is obviously always a talking point, as we know very well. Oklahoma folks know very well at this point. Not all schedules are built equally in the SEC, and certainly that has been the case with the Sooners. I mean, last year it was a murderer's row. You look at this year, it's ranked near the tops. You open up with kind of a layup against Illinois State. We hope it's a layup. It better be. The following week, not to spoil the surprise, but I will be making my first ever trip to Norman, Oklahoma when Michigan comes to town. Really excited for that one night game. Huge tone setter for the season, too. I mean, a Michigan team that very proud program from the Big Ten, but they will bring a young quarterback in there in Bryce Underwood. That'll be a nationally televised game. Again, a chance for Oklahoma to set the right tone for the season. Weird road trip in Road 3 to Temple. How about that one? Ever set that up? You open SEC play against Auburn. We've talked a lot about it this offseason, Tyler. I think for both sides, That is a massive game. Both of these head coaches, that is a massive game. Obviously, Texas in Dallas and the Red River Shootout in the middle of October. You go to South Carolina. You go to Alabama as I think your big road games on the season. You go to Tennessee as well. Almost missed that one. Ole Miss comes to town. Mizzou comes to town. LSU. I'm kind of jumping around here. But simply put, Tyler, when you look at the schedule, overall thoughts and how do you feel it shapes up for Oklahoma? Is it conducive to having a good season? Your overall thoughts on the schedule?
I don't know if it's conducive to having a good season. I think good season or not, we're going to know before you head to Dallas, right? And I am not saying it's going to be easy to beat Michigan and to beat Auburn at home, but I think you have to. Like, if this team is really going to be a college football playoff contender, that's really what we're talking about. OU needs to be undefeated going into Dallas. They need to beat Michigan, and they need to beat Auburn, and they need to go to Dallas as a 5-0 football team. Again, that's not going to be easy, but that needs to be the case because I think that your toughest games are all backloaded. You read the schedule. Look at the month of November, dude. You go to Tennessee, and Tennessee's maybe the biggest question mark in the SEC, but it's still going to Neyland, dude. Like that's not going to be easy. And then you go to Alabama, and then you play Missouri, and then you play LSU. The every month is difficult, but November could be murder's row, man. It's really tough. So you need to set yourself up in the best situation possible as a college football playoff contender going into the month of November. And you have to do that by beating a Michigan team that's probably going to be starting a true freshman quarterback in his second ever game. You need to do that by beating an Auburn team at home that who knows what they're going to be this year, and you're probably going to be facing your former quarterback who didn't have a good year last year. Narrative-wise, it would be bad to lose that game. Home game-wise, just everything. You've got to set yourself up best way possible going into the month of November because it's not going to be easy. It's absolutely one of the most difficult schedules in the SEC, but they had that last year. And here's the difference, Chris, from this year to last year. Last year, you had a difficult schedule, and it felt like everybody in the conference either had a bye week before they played Oklahoma or they played a crap team before they played Oklahoma. That's not the case this year. And I don't know if the league office got the memo, but this year, Texas goes to the swamp before they play Oklahoma. There's like 3 other teams that have difficult games. I think South Carolina, maybe they play Alabama before they play Oklahoma. But instead of having a bunch of byes before you play these tough games, other teams have to play really good teams in conference before they play Oklahoma. So that helps out a little bit. But you've also got to do what you didn't do last year. OU only had 3 home SEC games because of the neutral site game in Dallas with an 8-game schedule. Now you get 4 because you are the road team in Dallas. You need to be at worst 3-1 at home in the conference. You just got to be, man. Like maybe you can lose a game at home to LSU and, still be good enough to be a 9-3, 10-2 team, but you weren't good at home last year. You've got to be better at home this year. Got to protect your home field in this conference and figure out a way to steal some wins on the road. But it's difficult for sure. But with this difficult of a schedule, can a 9-3 team get in the college football playoff? That's a big conversation that we're having around here at this point.
So, Tyler, overall outlook for Oklahoma, and I hate to go back to the low-hanging fruit, but I just have to, in regards to Brent Venables and his seat. You mentioned you think he's on the hottest seat in the SEC. Let me simply ask you this. Outside of the obvious, which is, making the playoff, right? That would obviously remove him from that. I mean, my question is, what does success look like for Brent Venables in year 4? Is it as simple as a win total? Is it the offense and the offensive line being better? Is it a combination of things? Because you've stated that the seat is actually really that hot as we kind of make, because sometimes we can over exaggerate. We'll make it out to be something where it's like, it's not really that dire straits. It sounds like it is there. So what does success look like? What do you think they got to do? What does Brent Venables have to do to gain back some of that good favor with some of the fan base that's kind of fallen out with him?
Yeah, well, like you said, the playoff, he's good. He's back in 2026. He's not getting a contract extension or anything like that, but he's at least back for the following season. 6-7, if it's the same record as last year, new coach. 7-5, which would be an improvement from last year. I don't think that does it. And this even got a lot of, what? No way. Really? At SEC Media Day? I don't know if 8 wins does it, Chris. And here's why I say that. Yes, 8 wins on paper would look like, hey, that's a step in the right direction for Oklahoma in year 2. That's 2 more wins than they had a year ago. And maybe 8-4 would do it. All I'm saying is I'm not 100% sure it would, because I don't think OU paid this offseason for a 7-5 or an 8-4 football team. And you already just talked about the expectations that are still here with this program. What I say with that is OU probably spent more this offseason, not probably. They spent more this offseason than they ever have in their program's history before. They went out and paid for arguably the best quarterback in the portal. They went out and paid for arguably the best running back in the portal. They went out and paid for wide receiver help, for help on the defense, for the hot, young, up-and-comer offensive coordinator, for the GM, Jim Nagy, that everyone was raving about. Like, they paid for all of these spots, on field, off the field. It's almost as if OU said, okay, this is a crossroads for us as a program. We are going to give Brent Venables the best possible opportunity to get this right. This is a real evaluation year for him and our program. So we're not going to leave any stone unturned. Whatever we need to pay to help best our roster be better than last year and be where we need to be, we're going to do that. So with that being said, OU didn't pay for 7 wins. OU didn't pay for 8 wins. What OU paid for this offseason, and I think what their expectation is a berth in the college football playoff. Now, whether that happens or not, obviously we're going to find out over the course of the next few months. But OU made an investment that I don't think that they ever had before in the offseason. And part of that investment is we're going to give the man everything he wants. He got decimated by injuries last year. He got a terrible draw with the schedule. He had terrible luck, all this. Well, let's make it right. Let's make it right this offseason and put the program and the team in the best possible situation in 2025, and we'll see what happens, and we'll see what we do moving forward. But 7 wins would be an improvement, but I'm just telling you, I don't think it's going to be good enough. I think that where you start is they need to be a college football playoff contender in November. Cannot be talking about Oklahoma already have the playoff race in November. Can't happen. This team's got to be a real contender for the playoff this year. I think that wins-wise, whatever you want to talk about, that's really where you got to start.
Tyler, on that note, in closing, you mentioned the offensive line. You mentioned winning at home. A key for you, if that's going to happen, like, what's the one thing that's got to click? And maybe, again, you already talked about it, but the key for you for Oklahoma to meet those expectations.
Man, you could probably say this with every single team, but it's so true with this one. How good are they in late game situations? I think that they're probably going to be okay for the most part running the football, right? You know, first quarter, second quarter, third. They're not going to be the leading, team rushing in the SEC, but with Jaydn Ott back there and John Mateer adding some juice in the run game, like OU's rushing yards will be solid this year. But can they run the ball, Chris, when there's 2 minutes left and everyone in the stadium knows they got to salt the game away and run the football to pick up a first down? Can they do that when everybody knows OU's got to line up and pick up a first down here? That's going to be critical. That's critical for every team, but especially for OU, because when I look at the schedule, I say 1-score game, 1-score game, 1-score game, 1-score game, OU's going to be in a ton of 1-score games, I think, in the fourth quarter. So do you have a dude at quarterback that is clutch late? Do you have an offensive line that can push someone back late and get the first downs you need to go win you a football game? Like, we can talk about everything that we want about this team, but are they a much better team in late game situations than they were a year ago? Or are they going to be a team that's up a touchdown late against Missouri with like 2 minutes left and they end up losing by a touchdown in regulation? They've got to be a better late game team. I think that's ultimately going to determine, along with the offensive line, along with some other things, what the record is at the end of the year. Can you be good? Can you move the ball when everyone in the stadium knows what you're going to do? Because Georgia's been able to do that for a long time. Alabama was able. It didn't matter if you knew Bama was going to run the ball late. They'll run it right at you, pick up a first down, the game is over. Can Oklahoma be that type of offense this year? That's what I would say is going to be a huge thing, because I think it could be a 1-score game when you come to Norman against Michigan, and in every single SEC game this year. That would make 9 of your 12 games that could be close in the fourth quarter. Can you be good late? We'll see.
Only time will tell, Tyler, for Boomer Sooner. Again, I appreciate you taking the time. And again, I'm really excited to get down to Norman. First time ever take it in. Going to be an electric atmosphere. Obviously, an electric conversation with you as always, my friend. Let folks know if they've been living under a rock, where they can check out all of your great work.
Man, we talk college football every single day on my radio show, 3 to 6 Central. Just search KREF in the App Store. And we talk a lot of SEC football. We're actually doing SEC team takeovers right now. So for the next 3 weeks, talking about a different SEC team every single week. Dory Noka just joined our squad of the SEC Network. He's 9 to noon every single weekday. He's had Sankey on. He's had Pollock. I mean, dude, he's got all the heavy hitters in the conference. So KREF in the App Store for college football. And then my own personal channel, if you dig SEC softball, I know there's some people out there, Tyler McComas, or Tyler on OU softball. I just changed it. Tyler on OU softball. You can subscribe there if you like some league predictions that I have already out for SEC softball in 2026.
Tyler, great stuff as always, man. Appreciate you taking the time. Like I said, looking forward to seeing you in Norman very soon, my friend.
Yeah, you bet. Anytime.